Circling back for a moment, you had mentioned fake degrees and fake music. What do you mean when you say fake degrees and fake music?
Okay. Um, I kind of want to. Yesterday, I was just a little bit reading. I will answer your question. I'm not dodging from it. But there's the picture of Dorian Gray by right, very famous, by Oscar Wilde. And so I don't like the book much, but I do like the preface that he wrote. And out of that preface, at the end, he does write this. I will quote. Um, We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it. The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely. And at the end, he finishes it. All art is quite useless. Okay, so uh, there's a we can talk about this, whether he's right or whether he was just sort of pulling a leg. But um, we kind of need to get away from this uh, ivory tower of academia where people, lots of musicologists talk, and this never-ending glass bead game where they create parallels between art and math and all sorts of things, finding some kind of meanings, perhaps somewhere where there's none possible. And that brings to attention that if all you do is you're creating this absolutely abstract ideas that don't relate to the audience that you're seeking, then it becomes useless. In useless in the sense that no one, it's like no one is listening to your music. So the music then becomes useless. Or maybe you created that music for a certain grant, and that music was performed once and put on shelf and never again was performed. That's a useless music. Okay,
Mm.
because that music never really ignited the interest of the audience, and someone said, "Oh, let's play this, let's hear it again." Okay, how much? 99% of all this grand new music for grants being performed once, put on shelf. Okay, we just have to admit it. That's what it happens. It becomes useless in the sense that it did not drive the listeners emotionally. It didn't speak emotionally to them. So that all the parameters of music, the qualities of music, weren't there. Okay, or probably the music itself was not good. So we can talk about this and thinking that what kind of music do they teach to compose nowadays in the
Mm.
academia? Okay,
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So it sounds like there's a tension right now between over commercialization of art, but then also creating art that's too niche. One of the things that I did to outline this about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, which I think you saw, I performed John Cage's
yeah,
433, which was the great academic achievement of the 20th
yeah,
century in piano. But one of the things that I've noticed a lot of composers are creating right now is music in this sort of 12 tone serialism or atonal, where you sit there and you're supposed to find the meaning in a what sounds like, I know it's not random, but what sounds like a random abstraction. On the flip end, why is this form of music not a form of music that just has a very niche audience like we were talking about earlier? Like, what if there is an audience for atonal music and we just haven't discovered it yet? This sort of academic Hermann Hesse's glass speed game sort of reality that we're creating in the universities.
yeah. I will explain. It's very easy to create a music in a 12-tone system. Easy. You don't need pretty much anything for it. All other parts, all other aspects of qualities of music and skills in music, you don't need to create this. All you need, shuffle that matrix, find that row, and find all those things, put it on paper. It's a drawing class, lines, etc. So it has, and then they say, okay, now let's see how it sounds. Oh, it sounds interesting, but it's an abstract. It's like imagine you're throwing utensils down the staircase, and whatever sound they make, you feel like, oh, that was kind of cool sound. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same principle. It's this. Forgive my French, but it's this bullshit that people hide behind their their innermost lacks in skills. That's what it is. You know what's the hardest thing to do actually in composition? To create a good melody. That's the hardest thing to do. Um, the
Say more
hardest,
about that.
yeah, the hardest thing in music, in art in general, is to create beautiful things without sounding kitsch. It's very easy to sound kitsch.
What
Okay,
do you mean when you
nowadays.
say kitsch?
Kitsch is something like what, for example, like some kind of minimalism that sort of accompanies some kind of like a almost like a soundtrackish stuff. That's what I call kitsch. Like kitsch, that is like it's a shortcut for people who have no idea. Just like it's a picking up the berries that you see on the top of the grass, but not trying to dig deeper to the meaning. So it's like this very superficial beauty in one way. Okay, that's what I call kitsch. Um, it's very hard to find an original theme, original melody created. It's like you have to, and then put it into a context of the form. Okay, just not just like a throw it out there, and because even the beautiful melody cannot survive if you don't put it in a you don't you don't have good skills to put it in a good form. It's for a reason people created form, musical form. Okay, it's like all those years of accumulation of traditions. Let's say starting from, let's say, okay, if not medieval, but let's say from Renaissance up to the end of 19th century, where people would be making that Christmas tree more, let's say, with more beautiful, more pretty, putting things in. And starting from the beginning of 20th century, they started taking things off that Christmas tree. And nowadays, we just have the Christmas tree, not even a Christmas tree, it's already some kind of very bold bush. Okay, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and that's pretty much music today. Think about this. So they decided to remove the melody, then they removed the harmonies, then they removed the form, and now what else do they have? They only looking for some timbre. All they do, they work with timbre, extended techniques, all this kind of stuff, and of course this again flirting with an audience, saying like, well, let me. Why do I need to create, for example, why do I need to create this some kind of suite for cello if I just can go buy a cheap Chinese cello, get on stage and slam it against the floor and say, this is my statement. See what I mean? That's like a short-term gratification, short-term some kind of it's a flirting with the audience in a, let's say, kind of shock content, right? That's it. You get quite you can actually be quite famous quickly of that, or that banana to the wall. It's the same thing. It's a provocation one way, but it has nothing to do with art. Um, we Nowadays we actually talk about art more philosophically rather than we actually doing art,
Why do you
making
think that is?
because it's easier. Everyone is in comfort zone. It's easier to do that. Let's just have a little conversation, like with coffee, and like thinking like about how where art is, because there's actually a lot of Joseph Knechts in today's world. For people who didn't read that book, Joseph Knecht was this magister, like a very brilliant guy who could create parallels between music and other forms of sort of human existence, like mathematics, and physics, and anything like that, and philosophies. So it's easier to, and again, egotistical to talk and demonstrate your brilliance of mind rather than create something. Because, by the way, another thing from Oscar Wilde, the artist is the creator of beautiful things, and to reveal art and conceal the artist is art's aim. I think that's a great, to reveal art and conceal the artist, to hide the artist, that's the art's aim. That's exactly the point why all this talk and all these people who like this TED Talks and all this kind of stuff, uh, why it's actually relevant today, why we have so many uh, sort of talkers and but then you start seeing what they actually done, you feel like, why was I listening to that person? What does that person have to say except his brilliant mind? Okay, the product isn't there.